Okay, everybody ignore that segue, but we are going to talk about this odd history between India and Nazi Germany. And India and Nazi Germany have a legitimately, like Nazis, not necessarily Nazi Germany, as in not the military part, but India has a weird connection with Nazis. Prakar, why are you in Goa?
I am actually on a small tour in Goa and also for a friend's wedding.
You have other
So our
friends?
no, so our tour Goa tour manager, it's his brother's wedding in Goa. So while we were here, we thought we'll do some shows also, like
Ah,
travel, make some money, attend the wedding, and enjoy Goa in December. So sort of all of it came in together.
that's nice. What a nice life. I like
Not
this.
really. It's very tiring. Very tiring. Yeah, I don't know if I'm like ready for it at this
What do
age.
you mean?
Age.
No,
Age hits you
Prakar.
hard.
You guys are going to different tours. You're touring outside the country. You can't not
It's
have
very
this.
tiring. It's very tiring. I think I should retire.
Mm.
It is very tiring, I can imagine, but that is the life you chose, bro. I mean, you can't just back out of it just because it involves too much traveling. And you knew all of this before going into it, no? I mean, it's not
Not
as if it was a
really.
surprise. What do you mean, not really?
Not
Any
really.
successful band
Or
has to tour.
yeah. What did you think performing would be like?
To perform, go back home and sleep.
Nah. Mm,
Yeah.
mm.
It really is true in some sense, but it all of it falls when you have to travel outside of Delhi.
By the way, I just want to put this on the record that now that we are doing from this episode video versions as well, I hate
Mhm.
it. I absolutely hate it
Why?
because I have to turn on this fucking light. And on this side, can you see this thing?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is a lamp over which a lampshade I have just hung. Okay, it is not, there's no place to actually fix it because the lamp has its own structure, right? Like to attach it. But I just put it over there because I hated even that light because there was no diffusion. So now when I turn on that light, it's so nice. Those two lights, they're super nice. The shades are precarious because they can fall down at any point of time, but the light is diffused and it's just
No,
pleasant.
I saw that last time when I came to your house and I was very confused. What have you guys done it and why have you done it? There's a
That's
proper way
that's
of
me.
like putting in light covers, but this is not the way. This is literally just you kept
So,
it on top of it.
Yeah.
in general, as a thumb rule going forward, whatever weird things you find in our house, you can always almost attribute it to Ashmita. Okay,
That is
if
true.
something doesn't make sense, you can straight up walk to Ashmita and ask her what the fuck is going on here. Because I have, like, 99% of the times, I have absolutely nothing to do with that. Okay, it's just a call that Ashmita has made on her own and has gone through with it. Okay, so yeah.
Oh, do we have a? We don't have a. It is my episode, and as usual, I don't have a segue. So I'm just letting you guys know. And
I
What's
think
the topic
everybody has
about?
come to
Maybe we
expect
can.
that by now.
that is fair. What were you saying, Prakar?
What is the topic? Maybe we can come up with a segue.
Have you heard of the Azad Hind Fauj?
Yeah, brief. Yeah,
Briefly, right? The
yeah,
Free India Legion. It is about that, but also this weirdly, it was short but bizarre, but also weirdly understandable history of how we tried to be besties with the Nazis for a while there to get the British
Oh
out of
yeah, yeah,
India. Yeah, so
yeah, yeah.
we're going to delve into
Yeah.
that. Do you have a segue?
Yeah.
So we have no
Okay,
segue.
so just like
Yeah.
I have one,
Free.
like
Oh,
a very tenuous one,
okay.
but I have one. So just like Ashmita wants to bathe in the warm light of the tube lights, in the warmth of these tube lights, very similar to that, the Azad Hind Fauj also wanted to bathe in the warmth of the Nazis,
Oh my
the
God.
German Nazis.
Oh God, that's a horrible segue. And that is also not true. That's not what happened. Okay. Jesus Christ, Sandy.
Under the warmth of Nazis. Wow.
Also,
I don't know what that is.
that's horrifying, dude. Oh, God. Okay, everybody ignore that segue, but we are going to talk about this odd history between India and Nazi Germany. And India and Nazi Germany have a legitimately, like Nazis, not necessarily Nazi Germany, as in not the military part, but India has a weird connection with Nazis. And by India, I mean the Hindutva gang, the far right, alt right nationalists who buy into the concept of Hindu supremacy. They have this odd fucking connection with Nazis, and we'll delve into that some other episode. This one, I want to talk about specifically Free India Legion and Subhas Chandra Bose and his, history with Nazis. So,
I have always been very curious with the story of Subhash Chandra Bose because there's so much mystery around that one person. Like how he used to travel using caves and tunnels, and one day he's at some place, the other day he's in some other place. He joined some other army, and still there was there were stories about that how Subhash Chandra Bose is still alive. For the longest time, there was a controversy that was going on.
Yeah, I mean that was a weird ass controversy, but there's a lot of mystique around this particular person, and in India he's almost hero worshipped, right? Like, I don't know about you all.
Depends on who you're asking. Depends on who you're asking.
As in, who?
I think it's not as black and white as you're suggesting it is.
It is not.
Subhash Chandra Bose is almost always in the gray area. So people, I don't know if he's worshipped as a hero. Some people might, but he's a controversial figure.
He is a controversial figure. However, if you go back to reading history from like when we were in school and then even a little older, right? There's very little discussing the gray areas. So, yes, an extremely complex character. I think that is true for most historical people relevant to the Indian freedom struggle. When you're taught about them, you're taught only good things about them. And that I think is a massive fallacy in teaching history. But I will get to that later on. I will talk about the history of Azad Hind Fauj or the Free India Legion and how it was brought about, how it was formed, what was Bose's role. And then we are going to discuss a little bit about Hitler and Bose as well, right? Now, just for everybody who doesn't know, the Free India Legion was formed by Subhash Chandra Bose in 1944 against the British occupation of India. And it consisted of Indian prisoners of war and expatriates in Europe, right? Now, this was formed in Berlin in collaboration with the Nazis, right? Now, initially, I thought that was solely a case of the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? In fact, Bose has been on record saying that the Second World War was a conflict between two sets of imperialist forces, which India should take advantage of to win freedom, which is very valid. I buy that. Okay. But then I read further and found some interesting details that make this a murky and complex story. It is not as clear cut, right? And that deserves being talked about, right? So that is what we are going to go into. Now, I do want to caveat before we head into this that there are no outright heroes or villains in the story, except Hitler and the SS. Like they are one of the worst things to deface the earth, right? Like they are just disgusting. They were legitimately one of the most disgusting things to have walked the planet. But the rest of the people involved, they were pretty complex. They did some shitty things and they did some good things. Literally all of the people I came across. Okay. And that is what makes this, in my opinion, interesting and conflicting in a lot of ways. Like at least I went through a lot of conflicting emotions. And even till yesterday, I was working and reworking on my notes, bringing in things that I had earlier excluded, like revisiting what I thought about the conclusion. Now, I'm not a fucking journalist, right? Like I'm not doing an investigation. I'm not giving you a report. I'm giving you what I think about it along with the facts of what happened. And for the entire week, I couldn't really come to a conclusion of what I think about it, right? Because, Bose is, especially in my part of the country, he's a legend, right? When you land in Calcutta's airport is called Subhas Chandra Bose International Airport, right? There is a huge statue of him. When we read about Bose as a child, as children, and when in our families they talk about him very highly, right? So even though I knew that he did some shady things, I always thought it was like everything was for his the freedom struggle, right? And while it was, some shady things are kind of inexcusable. So we are going to talk about the origin. We are going to start with the origin story of Free India Legion, right? And we are going to start from the point of time. Do you all know how this was formed? Like, do you have the idea of, Azad Hind Fauj is Free India Legion, but do you know the story of the origin, how Bose ended up forming it? So we're going to start from the point of time in history when Bose was ousted. I don't know why I said ousted. I'm still saying ousted.
It is ousted.
Ousted.
Ousted, yes. Anyway, he was ousted from the Indian National Congress, INC, in 1941 because of his political differences with the rest of the party. There is a history there. He was elected president, then he was re-elected, and then there were conflicts with Gandhi, there were conflicts with Nehru. The core of the issue was that Bose was very much a left-wing nationalist person. Okay. The other members of INC weren't. INC was very much in the centrist setup. One major conflict was that it took a very long time for INC to start demanding complete independence. INC demanded for a very, very long time involvement of Indians in the governance of India, right? So they didn't particularly at that point of time want the British to leave so much as make the British and Indians an equal part within the country, which of course you can't negotiate with an imperialist force, right? So it wasn't working, right? But there was a faction that started forming, especially after the Jallianwala Bagh incident, where there was a large chunk of people who started demanding complete independence, and Bose was one of them, right? That is a little bit of background. Now, by 1941, when Bose left the INC, he was quite unhappy with INC and its leadership. And in his own right, he was quite a headstrong nationalist, right? So he was not just going to leave and do nothing. He had to do something, right? And this something was him escaping to Nazi Germany in 1941 to seek the support of the fascist party. His escape is in itself a very, very interesting story. Again, we will not go into that because it's too long. Like, he was arrested and then he escaped from prison and he made his way through. As a prisoner, you couldn't just take a flight and land in Berlin. Like, he had to take a lot of strange routes to reach Berlin, right?
Yeah, also, I think he was also in Japan for some time, right?
This was after. So from Berlin, he went to Japan, right? And he went to Japan.
Before that, I think he went to Myanmar, right? Burma, I mean, at that point.
I don't remember about Burma, to be honest.
Okay.
But I know that he went to Japan. In fact, Hitler provided him the submarine through which he went to Japan. But he went to Japan because Hitler was not meeting his requests. So we'll talk about that as well. That's also an interesting part, right? Now, in 41, when he came to Germany, he negotiated with the Nazi party and to sort of start off this Free India Legion. And Nazi party was very happy doing so because it was against the British, right? So German funds were employed to open a Free India Center in Berlin. And a 3,000 strong Free India Legion was recruited from among Indian prisoners of war. Now, we are going to talk about two different aspects here, right? Now, these prisoners of war were captured by Erwin Rommel in the Afrika Korps to serve under Bose. Now, who was Rommel and what was Afrika Korps, right? Rommel was in the Wehrmacht. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Nazi history, Wehrmacht was the official Nazi army, right? And the paramilitary force is the SS. So all of these Inglorious Bastards movies and everything that you see, and all of the popular, horrifying Holocaust, like people at the helm of the Holocaust, were, of course, Nazi Germany. Nazi army was 100% involved. There was not a single innocent person in armed forces. That as a concept does not exist. But SS was arguably the more horrifying part. You can still say Wehrmacht had people who were, who wanted to not do what Hitler wanted to do. But SS was fully responsible for the Holocaust and all other atrocities they committed inside and outside concentration camps, right? Against Jews, against LGBTQ community, like a bunch of people, right? So Rommel was in the Wehrmacht, the Nazi army. Okay, and he did some quite terrible things in Africa and Europe, obviously, but also tried to assassinate Hitler. So this is where a little bit of gray area comes in, where he was fully comfortable colonizing a certain chunk of Africa, right? But when Hitler was like, Europe is also ours, right? We are the Aryan race, the superior race. That's when Rommel started having a little bit of problem, right? And that's when he tried to assassinate Hitler. And also there's very little record of this. So nobody really knows for sure if he did or not.
Is this by any chance the assassination attempt which
No.
rendered Hitler ballless?
No. That was later.
No.
Yeah, that was later, right? There were some funny coups by Hitler and against Hitler. We should definitely talk about that someday. But anyway, so Rommel was leading the Afrika Korps. Afrika Korps was a part of...
Sorry.
Yeah.
1 second. Is it Korps or is it Corps?
Afrika Korps. Now, this was a part of the Nazi German army that went to North Africa from 1940 to 43 to help, of course, Italy, right? Because Italy was a part of the Axis powers, and Italy had colonized and was occupying the North African countries at that point of time. And the British were trying to capture those lands, right? All of the World War II history is centered around Axis powers versus Allied powers, Allied forces, right? These were the imperialist forces, right? And all of the rest of us, right? The people from African countries, the people from Middle East, Palestine action happened at this point of time where British was
global South, basically. All the global
South or global majority, as we call it now. We were just desperately trying to somehow escape from this, and in the process also safeguard ourselves. Okay, neither the Allied forces nor the Axis powers were good people. If there are clear-cut villains in any story of World War II, it is all of them. It is literally all of the imperialist powers, right? So that, is an established fact, and you can check as much history as you want to, but that just exists, right? Now, coming back to Afrika Korps, at this point of time, the British Army had a lot of Indians, right? In fact, British Army was almost solely consisting of Indian soldiers. Only the top brass was British, right? And the German army during this attack on Northern Africa, African country by the British and the British army, the German army captured a lot of these Indians as prisoners of war, right? Then these prisoners of war were kept in, like, they were wooed to come into the Free India Legion, to be recruited into the Free India Legion, right? They were given, and Bose was fully a part of it. Like, Bose was the one leading the recruitment, and he was a fantastic negotiator. So he would know where you have to put pressure and where you have to put, like, you have to give perks, and you have to woo them, right? So these prisoners of war were initially treated very, very badly, and then they were treated really well, so that you could give them the hope. You could indicate that, oh, if you become a part of the Free India Legion, you're going to get far more perks, right? So as I said before, there are no heroes in this story, right? Everybody is doing something super, super shady.
If I can just interject, at that time, I get where you're coming from, but it was sort of a needs must situation, right?
Yes.
Am I wrong in saying that?
No, correct. Absolutely correct. Not from the German side and not from the British side.
Yeah.
From the Indian side,
especially from Bose's point of view, it was the end justifies the means sort of situation, right?
Yes.
Like, because the end goal was a free India.
Correct.
Keeping that in mind, I think you might forgive him for some of those transgressions, if you will.
Yes.
Right.
By the end of this, I will ask you this question again. Anyway, the Free India Legion was officially designated as the 950th Indian Infantry Regiment under the Wehrmacht, right? So it fully became part of the Nazi, not the SS, the Nazi army, official army, right? And this unit was equipped with German weapons and trained in Germany. But it carried the Indian nationalist insignia and swore allegiance to Bose's leadership. So this one is the insignia, which is, for the listeners, it was the German name of Free India, which I don't know if I cannot pronounce German names. It's called Free Indian, I think. And it had a leaping tiger as the insignia. So insignia was what they wore on their uniform, right? And the flag with also a leaping tiger, but it was called Azad Hind, right? Or Free India. This was the Azad Hind flag, which they carried, right? So this was
formed.
formed.
Looks like Times New Roman. I think they used Times New Roman, no?
I mean,
it looks like Times New Roman.
I doubt the font was the major concern at that point of time.
Yeah, no, I know.
They didn't do a branding activity.
Also, the ad industry boom had not yet taken place, so they were
yes.
ad
People
consultants or no Dawn Drapers at hand to consult with.
Correct. They had more important problems at that point of time.
They must have lost their shit when the designer just flipped the tiger from right to left to left to right. Oh my God, how did you take the other side of that? The picture of the tiger from other side.
While our people are being actively killed, while everybody is at war. 1941, right? 1941 to 44. Everybody is dying at that point of time. Literally in the whole world. World War II is going on. But at that point of time, I'm pretty sure there must be some shit-ass person who must be like, this is not looking fine. Because that person always exists, right?
Yeah.
इस शेर को थोड़ा हल्का बड़ा कर दो शेर को हल्का सा just a little bit.
I'll share our brand guidelines with you. Please just adhere to that.
Hey, listen. Now that I'm at the client side,
ठीक कर दो please.
I'm at the client side, and brand guidelines deserve to be followed. I'm sorry, it's very confusing.
No, I agree.
But speaking of ad industry, that is why we are going to make maybe a little bit of money, a few pennies from these ads that are coming up. So, I can do a segue. So you all enjoy these ads, and we are going to be back in a bit. Welcome back from the ads. We were talking about arguably a shady history of a certain part of the Indian freedom struggle, but also, again, in some ways, quite justifiable, right? Quite understandable, not justifiable. Like at that point of time, the priority was get imperialist British the fuck out of India. They are making our lives miserable for the past 200 odd years, right? So, but we are going to still delve into the gray area a little bit more. So we are going to talk about Bose and the Free India Legion. Okay, how they came in, and then what the agreement of Germany with Germany was, how Germany behaved, all of that. Right now, I found this website that is called NetajiSubhasBose.org. It's essentially an ebook about Bose published online, but it is weirdly, I don't know, if Bose was alive, they would be rimming him. Like, it's extremely, sucking up to him sort of a, it's not historical and a historical account. It, like, the pro Bose bias comes up along a little too much. And even in things where Bose was, not making the best of the decisions, they were not coming outright and saying that, which I find very, very fascinating. Because how do you expect any human being on the planet, much less a person who was one of the key leaders of a movement that was arguably for one of the largest land masses and populations in the world, how do you expect people to not make any bad calls? Such a human being has never existed on the planet. Some people are outrightly terrible. For example, Hitler. For example, Netanyahu. For example, Modi. All of these people outrightly terrible, right?
The nation thanks you.
Like, nothing good about them. Literally nothing good about them. And even if there was, their terrible things, completely overshadow whatever good they do. But the rest of the people, even the really good people, did some shitty things, and you need to talk about them to not murk around with history. And it's important, right? But this website doesn't do that. I still want to quote from this website because some interesting things I found from here. So this website says, while the geopolitical activities were shaping up, Subhas Chandra Bose was busy in giving shape to his plan. India Office, which later became the Central Office Free India, I'm not going to try and pronounce the German name of this, became his operational headquarters. Its primary goal was to spread information on India's independence struggle. This is correct. This part is completely correct, right? The website continues. It published a regular news magazine, Azad Hind, and also established broadcasting facilities to India. Although the German government never recognized Bose's office as the government in exile, the office practically functioned as an embassy with German counterparts in the Foreign Office. I'm going to pause here and talk about this sentence. Bose's biggest demand from Germany was to recognize Azad Hind Fauj, or the Free India Legion, as the government in exile. That would legitimize the Free India Legion as a unit of India's freedom struggle, like India's military functioning rather than German military functioning, right? Germany cared fuck all about this, because for Germany, this was never about India's freedom, right? They don't give a shit, right? I mean, Nazi Germany, right? I don't know if it was not Nazi Germany, it would have been different, right? So we don't know any of that. Right? But at that point of time, Nazi Germany does not. Nazi Germany gives a fuck only and only about themselves, nobody else. This demand, this becomes important as we go ahead, that this demand was never recognized, right? Now the website continues saying, Adam von Trott-Soos headed the Special Department for India. Who's Adam von Trott? He was a German diplomat who was executed for his failed 20th July 1994 plot to assassinate Hitler. Sandy, I think this is the balls one. Right?
By the
But-
way, like who sanctioned this website? Like, what's the organization?
No,
or
we
who
don't
made that
know.
website?
So I looked up the About Us page. It has, I looked up the acknowledgements about us, all of these things. It has dedications, it has, all of these other aspects, but there's no organization listed. So I don't really know who has written this. Of course, not official government sources, but it doesn't need to be, right? Like a historical record, in fact, should be written by third-party sources and everything, right? So we don't know who wrote this, but very extensive, don't get me wrong. They have put in a lot of very, very accurate information. It's just if you read only this and you don't validate what they are saying with other things, you will come off with a very different opinion of Bose than you do when you read up from different sources, right? Which is what is important. When you read historical records, it's very, very important to read from different sources. You can't just read one fucking book and be like, okay, this is it. Right? There are different records of history of the same incident, and it gives you a better view, and it still might not give you 100% true view, right? You still might know only about half of it. But if you read just one narrative, you know next to nothing about it, right? Anyway, so Adam Montrot is, remember his name because he's an important character and we're going to talk about him. He's the one who he's very clearly anti-Hitler, right? He has always been. But he's also involved in the Nazi army. I want to pause here. You will find a lot of such people, right? Individuals do shit to survive. And oftentimes they don't, at least initially, they don't realize what they're getting into. They don't realize how terrible this affair can be. It doesn't excuse what they do, but it sort of helps you understand where individuals come from, right? So Adam Montrot was one such character, a complex character, very much a part of the, what was it? What was the name of the army? I forgot. Wehrmacht. And also he headed the special department, but also very much anti-Hitler, right? This is interesting. The article continues. The Free India Legion was created. Bose had visited Rome in May 1941 via France. He reached Rome on 14th June and received a grand reception befitting the head of a state. Mussolini received him personally on the following day. Why are you saying this? Like, this is just one random sentence about Mussolini, as if Mussolini's reception validates Bose for some reason. It's an extremely strange sentence to put in. Like, do you get what I'm talking about? The website, like, it's not an unbiased account by any means, right? Okay, so with the formation of Free India Legion, Bose started recruiting more soldiers, primarily Indian prisoners of war. The formation of the Indian National Army was announced by the German Propaganda Ministry in January 1942. Another shady thing to happen. German Propaganda Ministry, for the uninitiated, is the ministry that was formed by Joseph Goebbels. The Joseph Goebbels, legitimately, I would argue, probably even worse than Hitler as a human being. He was responsible for all of the propaganda and very, very successful propaganda that Nazis conducted over a whole decade against Jews. And Joseph Goebbels was very much behind them. If you read about Nazi propaganda, deserves a whole other episode again, and I think a series of episodes. But if you read about them, it just gets worse and worse and worse, right? So now this should have been the first red flag, because it was in 1942. By 1942, if this was like in 1936, 1938, I would have been like, okay, maybe they didn't know that it was going to end up this bad, right? But in 1942, Germany wasn't trying to pretend otherwise. The SS was already formed, the concentration camps. I mean, Auschwitz too was formed in, I think, 1943, 1942. So it's not surprising at all at this point of time. So this should have been a red flag, but I don't know if it was. Then in 26th August 1942, the Free India Legion took an oath under the German army. Okay. And by 1943, the numbers within the army had swelled. There were Indian expatriates also who were, along with prisoners of war, who started enlisting with these guys. Okay. And it started seeming by 1942-ish, 1943 beginning, that this might actually be the real thing. This might end up becoming a major part of the Indian freedom struggle. Spoiler, it wasn't. Like, literally achieved nothing. Okay. Not even like a dent in the grand scheme of things for Indian freedom struggle, right? Now, what was the agreement with Germany? German soldiers would train the Indians in all branches of infantry and motorized units as well. And they would essentially fully military disciplined training, right? I have not come across this. I am not a journalist. I am just giving my inferences and my opinions. So I'm caveating here. German's strictest military discipline was drugging them to their noses. That was very much a part of German military, tactics, that drug them so much with what, Molly, I think, drug them so much that they can, function significantly better than a sober human being can. Like, put them on intense uppers. So the strictest military discipline of German soldiers was very much war crimes, was killing off innocent people and then drugging their soldiers. So I don't know what they were teaching them, but sure. Okay. They also taught the Indians in German formation. The Indian legionnaires.
Also, the drugging might have helped with taking away their inhibitions to some extent, I'm sure. That also might be one of the reasons why they were drugged up.
Possible, yeah. I don't know. I genuinely have not read anything about it, but it seems right.
Yeah, I mean, a normal sober person would at least think twice, thrice, 4 times, before just committing such atrocities, right? A drugged up person has lesser inhibitions. I mean, it sort of adds up. At least in my head, it adds up.
I think common people,
but
I think common people would be questioning. By the way, thanks, Prakhar. Prakhar just sent it. It was meth that they were drugged upon. Now, common people, Sandy, to this thing, common people would be questioning a lot of things, right, by this point of time. I think people in the military, people in police forces, we see it right now. We see it, across the world with people, with police forces attacking Palestine supporters. We see Indian police, Delhi police, beating up very, very normal, innocent people walking on the roads, like the Delhi riots that happened, in 2021 or something like that. Very much, the police, pretty sure the police were not on meth. They trained the German soldiers trained the Indian legionnaires. They were also, the agreement was they were not to be mixed with any German structures, right? There were strict guardrails on what this Free India Legion could do by the German side, right? They would not be allowed to be sent to any other front other than in India for fighting against the British. You can see why, not just because they wanted this fully under their control, but also Bose was, for example, sympathetic with the Soviet, right? And the Soviet was fighting from the Allied sides and was against Nazis. So obviously Nazi would be afraid that, what if they are shifted to the enemy side, right? And enemy to the Germans and not to the Indians, right? So that was one major condition. The only leeway was that you can fight in self-defense against anybody, right? And on paper, in all other respects, the legionnaires would enjoy the same facilities and amenities with respect to like pay and food and etc. as the German soldiers. In reality, that wasn't true. In reality, the upper hand was with Germany, and Indian soldiers were treated as second-hand citizens, which is fully in line with the thought process that Nazi Germany had against Indians as well. Hitler always considered Indians to be of a lower race, right? Hitler was actually pro-British earlier. He wanted the British to support him because he believed the British were of Aryan character. Obviously, for Hitler also, this was only a means to an end, right?
Several members of the royal family were also very closely associated with Hitler and the Nazi party.
Yes. Churchill was very, very closely associated with a lot of Nazis, people who fully supported Hitler. I mean, Churchill was a disgusting human being. Like there was nothing good about Churchill, to be very honest. But he was supposed to be anti-Hitler. He fully fraternized with a lot of Nazis. So again, all the OG colonizers, not a single good man over there, not one, right? Anyway, back to Free India Legion. Free India Legion, this 950th unit, right? It was also deployed in all of the other areas that Nazi Germany was trying to control. Like it was deployed in the Netherlands and France, ostensibly for training purposes as well. And also it supported Bose's plan to be trained in aspects of coastal defense, which of course was very important because I mean, when they went there, again, they couldn't just take a flight and drop, right? They would have to cross the seas. And training them in coastal defense became important. After the invasion of France by the Allies, this unit was then ordered back to Germany so that it would not participate in fighting for the Germany military interests anymore, right? Another key aspect of the Legion was that Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs would serve side by side. Now, two aspects to this, right? Of course, one was Bose himself was a proponent of communal harmony, right? But it also had another benefit, right? Which is that British Indian Army organized the regiments and units on the basis of religion and caste identity. And this was British MO. Their entire focus was to divide people on the basis of either religion, on the basis of either caste or regions. They used to do all of this. So within the British Army also, that hierarchy was divided on the basis of that. And you wouldn't have the Hindu unit merge with the Muslim unit to fight, right? So that the communal disharmony within the country was maintained, right? Now, Free India Legion was then a direct challenge to the way the British Indian Army functioned. Psychologically, when you are a part of such a unit, you are automatically against a unit that you are fighting against that does not follow any of this, right? So a lot of course, benefits that would have come out of this, provided it succeeded, right? One interesting tidbit that I came across was that you know how Jai Hind has become the official salutation of armed forces in general? This is widely accepted as the origin of this greeting was from, like, Bose introduced this to Free India Legion.
I've heard this.
Yeah, I did not know about this. I read it over here only, right? This is the background of the Free India Legion. Now, in 1943, the Legion had around 3,000 to 3,500 soldiers. And this period becomes a little important because this was the time the unit was transferred from the Wehrmacht to the SS. So from official military to the paramilitary, terrible people, this thing. Not that the military did not have terrible people, it fully did, right? In May 1943, the Free India Legion was deployed near the North Sea coast in Holland. we couldn't survive really well there. Obviously, we are from a tropical country, so the Indian soldiers found it very, very difficult to deal with the cold. They were not able to do anything. But there was a bigger problem in the eyes of the Nazi. And I found this really great article in the Wire, the Indian Wire, right? The one set up by the Free Press. The German army staff, I'm quoting from the Wire, the German army staff began to suspect that the Indian legionnaires were becoming much too friendly with the locals. Similar troubles had occurred in the training camps in Germany, where the exotic Indian men allegedly exerted magnetic powers of attraction over the local German women. The resulting interracial relationships threatened to disrupt the racial purity of I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, of the Volksgemeinschaft or the national community. The Volksgemeinschaft apparently means national community, as envisioned by the Nazi regime. So they started getting fully racist.
They didn't want the Indian men to mix their peanut butter in their chocolates,
Oh, that sounds so disgusting. It sounds horrible.
I was going to say that I should maybe go visit Germany sometime. Such a description of Indian men, I think that is where my, love
Not anymore,
is.
Prakhar. Not anymore. I have a few friends and a brother of mine also stays there. Not anymore. Let me assure you.
Maybe being a drummer might help.
That is true.
The funny part about racist people is also they tend to romanticize the people they are racist against. This is so common. Like in India, this happens so much. The Hindus are like, the Muslims are enticing our women and converting them into Muslims. You also despise a group and you also romanticize them to think that they have magical powers that they are going to entice all adult-ass women and make them convert into a different religion. The woman has no say whatsoever. White people have done this against people of color, black people. Europe has been consistent in doing this. It's quite interesting. These racist people are very, very strange. Germany's racism was coming across very, very clearly, right? Along with the deployment in areas where very clearly they couldn't do anything. You don't want to deploy your soldiers to a place where your soldiers are not able to function, right? But the racism was so much. There was such massive racism. They were like, just keep them out of Germany and away from German women, right? So that was what started happening. Now, it started becoming quite clear to Bose that Hitler and the Nazi party were not interested in the welfare of Indians at all, right? Especially in May 1942. This was before all of this is happening, right? The deployment in 1943 and everything. So we go back a year. Bose met Hitler to form a military plan, right, to get the British out. All Hitler agreed to provide was a submarine for Bose to go to Southeast Asia. Okay, so Japan was the imperialist, our side imperialist, and they were occupying a lot of Southeast Asian countries. And then Hitler was like, I can't provide you anything, but I will give you a submarine, a U-boat, so that you can go and, seek support from the other fascists. These fascists are busy. We are sort of fucked right now. And by 1942, they were pretty much fucked. They were breathing their last, right? So in February 1943, Bose left Emily Schenkel. Emily Schenkel was his Austrian, she was an Austrian. She was his partner or his wife. No records clarify. And his very, very young daughter, baby daughter, and the Free India Legion left all of them and went to Japan to gather support from a different fascist party that was also against the British. Go listen to ads. Bye. And now we are going to talk about what happened in the absence of Bose, right? We were talking about clear but subtle issues within the Free India Legion or India Legion. And after Bose left, it became quite outright, right? So once Bose left for for Japan, for imperialist Japan. In September 1943, the Legion was transferred to the south of France, where it was supposed to patrol the section of the Atlantic Wall, right, about in Bordeaux. But at this time, the Allied forces invaded Normandy. D-Day, D-Day, yeah, it's very, very popular, right, in June 1944, which forced the Legion to retreat towards Germany. During this retreat, it became involved in violent battles with the Maquisards. Maquisards were the French resistance fighters. There are a lot of murky details here. I mean, very honestly, I did not find evidence either way. But there are accusations of legionnaires trying to or raping women, of French women, then trying to kill French resistance fighters. Like, I wouldn't be surprised either way. I wouldn't be surprised if the legionnaires actually did it. And I wouldn't also be surprised if the Allied forces made this up as something that would ruin the reputation of Indian soldiers. Either thing is very, very possible. And I found no evidence either way. So I don't know whether this is true or not, right? But the fight was very much the battle that happened. That was very much in record, right? And 1943 to 44 is also when Nazi Germany started breathing its last, right? But also arguably some of the most heinous crimes were also committed during this period. Like, again, Auschwitz II was formed only in 1943, right? So, and I think Auschwitz murdered 1.1 million people, 1.1 million Jews, right? So Nazi Germany was breathing its last, but also becoming really, really disgusting. So they were getting desperate. They were trying to do a bunch of different things to try and survive, right? So on 8th August 1944, Heinrich Himmler, you guys have heard of Heinrich Himmler, right?
I haven't.
So Heinrich Himmler, also a terrible, terrible character. He authorized the Legion's control to be transferred to the SS. Heinrich Himmler, by the way, is touted to be one of the key orchestrators of the Holocaust. Right? He was one of the key people there, right? And that key, Prakhar. Like all other foreign volunteer units, and there were quite a few, Free India Legion was also transferred to SS from the German army, right? And again, Bose was nowhere in the picture now. Okay, so with no allegiance to Nazi Germany and in the absence of Bose, the Legion was naturally quite uninterested in participating in a war they had no stake in, right? So Nazi Germany has to do what it did best, which is propaganda, right? It actively won a lot of areas and support because of their disgusting propaganda, right? We'll get into this propaganda, but before that, I just want to tell you that nothing happened with this Legion. This Legion was a disastrous failure, right? So by December 1944, so August 1944, they went to the SS. December 1944, this Legion was stationed in South Germany, where it remained. There was nothing happening there. It remained till its official disbandment in May 1945 by the American Army. And the American Army turned over the Legionnaires to the British and subsequently sent back to India. A lot of these Legionnaires were executed, many in the dead of the night, hung without trial. The British colonizers did that very often to a lot of Indians. That was their MO. Basically, again, they were not nice people. Like, they were not good people. They were just, disgusting human beings. So there was no trial, nothing doing. They just hanged them. So that is a part. But essentially, Free India Legion achieved nothing. And I would argue that had a lot to do with Bose just upping and disappearing. Like, sure, you realize that Hitler is not going to do anything. You can't just leave all the people you have recruited. What happens to them? You are leaving them with Nazis? What's your plan? you are the leader, right? You made the promises. So I think this was a really shitty move on Bose's part.
He was in the mood for some sushi, apparently.
So I mean, in one way, again, you can understand, right? There was a bigger problem, which was trying to achieve India's freedom. But at the same point of time, these are your people. I don't know. It seemed, again, I don't know the details of how he left, but it seems from all historical records that he just up and left, and it feels to me like it feels a little off to me. Hitler's attitude. Now we're going to talk about Hitler's attitude towards the Legion and towards Indian, right? So Hitler, like we spoke before, like Hitler had always considered Indians an inferior race that deserved to be ruled by the British. In fact, till about 1938, Hitler and his regime praised the Aryan character of the British. Again, Aryan race or character is fully a figment of imagination. There's no such race, right? It doesn't exist. Hitler at this point of time, till about 1938, was still trying to get British into an alliance. But when it became clear in the World War II that Britain was a part of the Allied forces, Nazi Germany at this point of time went aggressively against the British, right? So the Free India Legion under the German army was just an extension of Nazi propaganda. They just wanted to poke the British with this. There was no intention of getting freedom for India whatsoever. Now, in its dealing with the Free India Legion, the German army wasn't really willing to set aside its racism as well, right? We have spoken about one incident, but which is the magical charm of Indian men over German women. Let's go a little bit more into details, right? And this was the same article by the Wire. So this article says, I'm quoting from there, racial prejudices led the Germans to refer to Indians as bimbos and the legion's predominant language, Hindustani, as bimbostani when talking amongst themselves. This racist approach was also reflected in a handout written for the German officers by Ulrich von Kritter, one of the adjutants of the Legion. This pamphlet claimed that Indians were primitive in certain respects, which made them susceptible to pedagogical influence. For Kritter, the ideal medium for influencing them was the Legion's magazine Bhaiband, translated into German as Kamerad or Comrade. Right?
Isn't it relevant? It feels it's relevant even now.
What do you mean?
Like how weird people are here now.
Right? Like, it is so funny to me that Nazis were fully racist against Indians. Like, they completely, absolutely despised us. And yet, we are the. Okay, for the listeners, we were waving to Prakhar's bandmate, suddenly appearing in the background. But anyway, we have been so happy. At least the Hindutva faction has been so happy involving Nazis. Like, there are legitimate. If you guys get a chance, do read up about Savitri Devi. She was a weird, like, she was not an Indian. She was a German, an Austrian or German who had come to India and fully adopted an Indian name, married an Indian guy, a Hindu person. When Nazis come to India, they fraternize with Hindus. Okay, because Hindus are the majority here. They get to exert more of an influence through Hindus, and they despise minorities, right? Much like a large chunk of Hindus do today, right? So it is hilarious to me that people who actively treated us as inferior people, they called us bimbos and called our language bimbostani. We are so willing to suck their dick all day long. Like, it is insane to me that there is this Hindutva faction that is so pro-Nazis. It's just so stupid, dude. It is.
Also, might I just point out that the guy who was in charge of all these flyers and shit, his name was literally Critter. Like it's
Yes.
very grand of him of all people to call other people whatever he called them.
Yes.
So
And
for
not
those
just
who didn't get that reference, a critter literally means an insect. It literally translates to an insect.
worm, a worm fully. We continue doing this, and we continue doing this with all people who hate us for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
We have a weird fascination with white people. It's really odd. There's this a subreddit. I forgot the name of the subreddit that points out, that takes screenshots of the reader's note, the community note that comes up on
Mm-hmm.
Twitter, where they correct people, right?
Hmm.
And so many of them are these accounts that are pretending to be members of the IOF, Israel occupying forces, and they are actually, like, when they look at the description and of that, they are actually Indian accounts. And every time these accounts go up and support Israel, a large part of Israel population is just saying, no, we don't want you fucking Indians here. Like, they hate
There
us.
was a there was a recent report, I think yesterday only, I was reading it. So a large chunk of the MAGA accounts also are either Indian or
Oh
African.
my god.
Yeah, a very large chunk, a significantly
Mm.
large chunk of the MAGA accounts are either based out of India or out of some part of Africa. I don't know where, but the Indian thing I'm actually not very surprised about. Like you were referring to,
Mm.
a lot of pro-Israel accounts are also India based,
Yeah.
especially from UP and Bihar, of all places.
Of
Like
all,
so,
I mean, I'm not surprised. Are you surprised?
no, I'm not surprised. I'm
Yeah.
just, it is what it
The-
is.
Jamtara International.
as long as it is anti-Muslims, these guys will jump onto any fucking bandwagon that they find. It's
Yeah.
like, it is wild to me. While they would be shunned out of these areas within a second, like, there's no concept of, even the concept of self-preservation has gone to hell. It's just stupidity taken over completely. But yeah, so this was, this very clearly was fully a racist Nazi propaganda, and the Free Indian Legion was always meant to be just a tool in the hands of Nazi propaganda. Now, the magazine Bhaiband that I told you about, or Comrade, that is an interesting weapon of propaganda for Nazi Germany, that it primarily used to influence the Free India Legion to swear allegiance to Hitler. And unfortunately, they were quite effective, right? So
Mm-hmm.
first, this was written in Urdu and Hindi, but it wasn't written by Indian soldiers as it was claimed to be. It was written by German scholars who knew Hindi and Urdu, right? These scholars or interpreters and other interpreters for different languages, they formed quite a large and horrifyingly effective part of Nazi propaganda. A lot of foreign support that they gathered was through these fuckers, right?
Of course. I mean, why is that surprising again?
No, it's not surprising
Obviously,
at
you
all.
need any kind of linguistic support you can get to ensure that it reaches all the people.
Yeah. It's just that they did it terrifyingly effectively. Like, it every time I read about Nazi propaganda and the Joseph Goebbels, I get chills. Like, it's I think without Joseph Goebbels and the propaganda, I don't think Hitler would have been able to do all the shit that he did. Like, a lot of shit he got away with because of this. But anyway, by
Every Hitler has a Goebbels. Every Modi has an Amit Shah. You always need some Chotu beside you to
yeah,
help you out with your grand scheme.
yeah, and these are not, like, in the very sort of casteist sense, not chotu, but they are the brains behind all of this. They execute everything.
Yeah. They are the Shakunis for
The
those
Shakunis is correct.
Basically, Mundu.
What's
the
Mundu?
Mundu. Yes,
What's a Mundu?
the truck drivers have this guy who guide them. Or
Ah,
look out, keep a lookout. The
they
sort of
are
the lookout.
Yeah.
they are called
Yeah.
Mundus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a cute name, no?
Yeah. Okay. So Bhaiband was used to eulogize Hitler in the guise of informing them about German history, right? So the authority of the German Führer, it was invoked. Yeah, Sandy, please. I know I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. Führer or Führer? What is it? Führer. Yeah. The German Führer was invoked time and again, for example, to make the Indian soldiers accept the Indian Legion's incorporation into the SS. Because remember, before the ad break, we talked about this, that they had no loyalty towards Nazi Germany, right? In fact, most of them were prisoners of war by the Nazi Germans. So they did not have any intention of sticking around. But the Nazi Germans were quite successful, and one of the very, very important means of influencing them was through Paiband, right? This newsletter. It was also used to reinforce the authority. Again, this is video, Prakhar. We need to cut out these parts.
Prakhar had a nip slip for those who are listening, and I don't intend to cut this part out.
Okay.
If you want to watch that nip slip in real time, you'll have to come to our YouTube channel.
Okay, so the magazine Comrade was also used to reinforce the authority of the Legion's commander, Kurt Krapp, often by alluding...
Again, what's with these names? Man?
Shit names, like literally shit, like literally shit of a name.
Just on a very short side note, do you think that all of these words came into existence because of these people? Maybe that's how the etymology works. Yeah, maybe that's how crap came to be synonymous with shit, because this person was shit. Etymology, maybe that's how it works.
It's actually possible. But the word existed before that also, no?
Yeah, depends on when crap came into existence. And also, to be very honest, Kurt Krapp was a very unimportant character. So I don't know if that happened.
But still a crappy person now.
A crappy person for sure, right? So Krapp was the one who was leading, or Krapp, I think, not crap. Krapp was the one who was...
Crap is more fun.
All right, Krapp then. They are shitty people. We continue with that. So Krapp was the one who was leading the Legion, right, after Bose left. And one of the ways that they kept reinforcing his command was by alluding to Bose being missing from the picture, right? Now, the Wire article, like I was talking about the Wire article, it says, one such write-up claimed that it was Krapp who decided to start the Legion, which is categorically false. The article continues, the text went on to mention the deep friendship that purportedly existed between Krapp and Bose, and concluded with the cry of long live Hitler and long live Netaji. This dual salutation reflected the oath of allegiance that the Indian soldiers took to carry out Bose or Netaji's fight for freedom of India by accepting Adolf Hitler, the supreme leader of the German state, as their commander-in-chief. Right? So they just started making Bose and Hitler inseparable in this communication. Again, I am just going back to how we started this. Bose, very much a complicated character, right? A complex character. You can find things where you can understand his actions, and you can find things where certain actions were just outrightly shitty, and then you can find things where he did immense good. No such bifurcation in amongst the Nazi Germans. Every single one of them, legitimately just a horrible person doing nothing good, right? Evil incarnate. I will show you how they celebrated Hitler's birthday in the Paiband. You see this, of course, for listeners, we'll put this up on Instagram. But this is Hitler's image. It is a drawing and it is celebrated. So I took this from the Wire only, and it writes, Hitler's birthday was celebrated by the Indian Legion according to the issue of Paiband published on April 17, 1944. And it's Urdu, what is that called? Text. These were very popular. Like, see the Paiband's, the Free India Legion's logo insignia on the top. and just celebrating Hitler. This is very jarring, right? Like to see Hitler being celebrated, like it really messed with me a little bit to see Hitler being celebrated under the Azad Hind Fauj insignia. And again, I don't know if you all feel the same way, but I grew up reading only good things about Azad Hind, right? I never, and Bose, I never read shitty things. So for me, this was extremely jarring to see that this was a part of, all of this. And
I don't know about, but I've heard good things in Bose.
okay.
Good. I'm pretty sure you're referring to the speakers, right?
Of course, yes, yes.
Thanks.
Now that the joke is explained, I think we can proceed.
Okay.
No, there was such a huge silence. I thought maybe.
Yeah, because that
I
was
need to
not a
clarify.
funny joke.
Okay.
But this explanation definitely made it a better joke. So
Okay. So popular patriotic songs and poems in Indian languages were quoted, and there were frequent references to Indian colonialist leaders like Gandhi and Bose to motivate the soldiers.
Condole.
Colonialist. Anti-colonialist, not colonialist leaders. To motivate the soldiers to fight a war that actually had very little to do with India's independence. And then there was the treatment of Indian legionnaires versus the German ones, right? I found this paper. It's a very good paper, actually. It's a paper by the Humboldt University of Berlin. I will link it. So they took directly from an Austrian who was serving in the unit, and they do not name him for obvious reasons. He was kind of a source, right? So this paper by the Humboldt University of Berlin, it says, the experiences of a young Austrian who was inducted into the 11th Company of the Indian Legion reflect the equations between Indian and German legionnaires. Some people call it legionnaires and some people call it legionaries, which I just noticed now. So if I have throughout the episode spoken one or the other, please consider them to be interchangeable. Anyway, between Indian and German legionaries from the point of view of an ordinary soldier, right? And I put ordinary soldier in quotes because up until this time, before this paper actually exploded, everything was from the view of Nazi Germans, right? The Indian soldiers didn't really get to do or say anything because they did not have a voice. And secondly, when they were sent back to India, they were killed immediately by the British, right? So they didn't really get to tell their side of the story, right? And this is what I mean by when I said read different sources, because this is still a glaring gap between what we know of the Free India Legion and what might have actually happened, right? And we'll never be able to fill that gap because, see, one thing is going to be sure, every single problem in the world has been created by colonizers. So because of, again, colonizers, this time a different one, we do not know what happened there. Anyway, I continue quoting the paper. It says, he speaks of privileges available to the German side which were denied to Indian legionaries holding the same military rank. Indian legionaries were treated either condescendingly or harshly, and German legionaries were in turn tactless and overbearing in their behavior towards their Indian colleagues. In relation to their looming defeat, the Germans had become thoroughly suspicious of the Indians. There were several German officers who acted as the ringleaders in this anti-Indian propaganda. And remember, this was set up as an anti-British pro-India legion, right? So things have gotten bad at this point of time when Bose has left after 1943, beginning of 1943 onwards. The Nazis were also quite against the Indian legionaries going to brothels and consuming alcohol, which was something that Nazis did very regularly, right? And they are on record saying that proper Orientals do not do this. Proper Orientals don't go to brothels, so don't consume alcohol and all of these things, right? Which is, again, an extremely racist othering that happens, and that is that you see across races. Racists are very simple-minded people, right? They do not have the ability to think differently or think, just think, actually, to be very honest. So across the board of all kind of races, you will find this. Things that racists do themselves are suddenly absolutely no for people they are racist against, right? Fully happens. All races do this, right? Also, Hitler called Free India Legion a joke more than once, right? It was not taken as seriously as a military unit by the Nazis. And nobody amongst us is surprised that Nazis were racist and anti-Semitic. I mean, the entire personal brand of Hitler was anti-Semitism, right? Like that's he fully doubled down on it. If he was on LinkedIn, he would have been even more unbearable. Like he is absolutely that guy, right? But the question remains, was Bose anti-Semitic? Was Bose was it just an enemy of the enemy situation? Or was he a little off with respect to his attitude about Jews? And in this, I want to compare two particular articles, right? Two particular sources, essentially. One is that, remember we talked about that fuck all website? I mean, it's not a fuck all website, to be very honest. It records history, netajisubhashbose.org. It records Bose's history pretty well, but it has a weird tone to it. They are not able to take Bose's dick out of their mouth for a long enough time to be able to, be a little normal about things. It's really strange, the way they write. And I'm going to compare this to a letter of apology to the Jewish people that was written by Sharmila Bose. Sharmila Bose was the great niece, or is the great niece of Subhas Chandra Bose, right? So she writes a letter of apology to the Jewish people and sends it to quite a few Jewish organizations for Bose's silence on the issue, right? We are going to compare these two primarily. The recorded history is quite clear. The inferences change, right? So the first thing, what that website talks about, it says, it is, however, pertinent to note that Bose had no sympathy with Nazi ideology, writes Girija Mukherjee, who was a close associate. They mean close associate to Bose. I must say, I have done some grammatical changes here. Some I have left. Whoever wrote this had an editing issue. Like the editor did not pay much attention. So there's some weird grammatical issue. So pardon me on that. Anyway, so Girija Mukherjee, they are quoting her over here. And she says, the first thing we need to do in order to have a clear understanding of Subhas Bose's views on Germany, Italy, and the countries which fought against England is to refer to Subhas Bose's numerous writings and statements of them, on them. If we do that, we will find that nowhere in his speech or in his writings has he ever praised or supported Nazi or fascist ideas. I have read practically everything he has written, and nowhere could I discover any of his writing in which he shows that he was attracted by the ideas of depriving others of liberty or of oppressing people because of their political beliefs or because of the race they belong to. On the contrary, a child of the Indian Renaissance of 19th century, Subhas Bose, who imbibed in his youth the ideas of Tagore, Aurobindo, Vivekananda, and Gandhi, was a profound humanist in the Hindu sense of the term, as revealed in his letters written in Bengali, published in the book Patravali. These letters are eloquent testimonies of his deeply ingrained sense of liberalism and love for liberty. Very fair. Sounds completely fine. It is true that there is no record of Bose supporting Nazi or fascist ideas in his writings. And if Bose's engagement with Hitler had ended in, say, 1938-37, this would have been justified to a certain extent, right? 34, not even 37, 38. By that time, he was doing quite a lot of shit. 34, 35, when the parliamentary changes were still being brought in and he was still the chancellor. If at that time he was doing this, I would have been like, okay, he had no reason to be bothered about what Hitler was doing. He was associated, he met Hitler in 1942, right? So, not saying anything fascist is not enough at a certain point of time. And I want to talk about Sharmila Bose's letter here, what she says about particularly this part. She says, there is no evidence to date that my great uncle, who allied with the Axis powers in his fight for India's freedom, said anything publicly or privately while he was based in Berlin from 1941 to early 1943, or even later between 1943 and 1945 when he was in Southeast Asia, even after the horrors of concentration camps became publicly known in the spring of 1945. Right? So she continues, for this unconscionable failing on his part, I am ashamed. My great uncle died in an air crash in August 1945, so it is not possible to know what he might have said or done had he lived longer. I do not want to be unfair to him. It is easy to criticize with hindsight, and there is a chance that he condemned the Holocaust verbally in private, and those with whom he spoke have not reported it. However, given the lack of such evidence to date and his failure to say anything in public, I feel it necessary to express my sorrow and remorse for this indefensible failing on his part. And I am inclined to agree with her. Like, Bose was a human being, right? Bose was a person, and he was undoubtedly going through one of the most difficult things a human being can possibly go through. He had a massive, massive responsibility on his head. But the more I read about Bose, the more I feel he wasn't really, like, he didn't discuss things. He didn't, get others into the loop. And that's how you change your mind, right? That's how you sort of, at least at that point of time where there were not enough material to read and you had very little access, you talk to different people. And that's how you influence each other's opinions. And it continues till today. That's why community is such a big thing. I feel like it is, again, my opinion. It's an inference. It's not a fact, right? It seems like Bose didn't really involve other people. He was very single-minded in that way, right? And I'm inclined to agree with Sharmila Bose, where the fact that he did not say anything publicly is a failing. He was an important enough person. And when you are in that important a position, you have certain responsibilities and you can't avoid them, right? So, yes, that was...
I'd like to be the devil's advocate here. Not that I'm in any way batting for whatever the Nazi Germany did.
Yeah.
But if I put myself very briefly in Bose's shoes, his sole aim was to get any help he could to help rid India of the Britishers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at it objectively, he couldn't walk into Nazi Germany and then criticize them to their face. Just, on the off chance that he could get any kind of support from them, right?
Correct.
And very soon after that, he died. So where was the point? Where did he get the chance to outrightly say that whatever you're doing is fuck all, but I also need your help?
He did not.
You know where I'm coming
yes. No. That is very fair. I completely understand that he did not say anything publicly between 1941 to 43. And he did, in fact, he did say things privately at that point of time against the Nazis. That was there, and we are going to talk about, not at that point of time particularly, but before that. And I am going to talk about that. The question is, when he did not receive the support, he left Germany. He was not going to get the support. At that time also, there is no public record. But again, I fully buy this. Yeah. I also fully buy this. We were dying at that point of time. Like, there was no time or capacity to sympathize with another oppressed group, while his own people were also fully dying. Like, it was not a good time at all. So I also understand that. This is what is important, right? This is why it's important to read about the different aspects of people, because good people also make shitty choices and you cannot justify them. You have to just find some ways to understand what happened and hold both these thoughts in your head without your head fucking melting. Which is why this podcast is not meant for right wingers, because they cannot hold two opposing thoughts in their head without. I mean, their brain does not, it's not their fault, their brain does not have that capacity. Like, it has very little capacity. So they can hold only one thought at a point of time, like this 1, 2, 3, cannot hold 1 to 5 together, right? But every other normal person must read all of these parts of history and understand that a person can have done shitty things, might have been a great person for a particular country and for a particular righteous movement, but at the same time might have done shady things, with shady intentions, but might have also done shady things with absolutely perfectly good intentions. Might have done shady things because he was just put in a bad situation. All of this happens. Human beings are very, very complex people. And I feel in history, when we read about history in our schools, we make it so black and white that it's impossible to have these discussions, right? And I don't think we ever end up learning anything from history if we don't have these discussions. So there is no right or wrong answer to this, right? And I find that fascinating. Also, on the website, this website on Bose, it mentions some letter that he wrote to Dr. Franz Theofelder of Munich in March 1936. And this is where he fully, 1936, like just before leaving Germany, he left Germany in 1935 the first time. He fully said stuff against the Nazis. Okay. And I'm quoting from the letter. He says, "When I first visited Germany in 1933, I had hopes that the new German nation, which had risen to a consciousness of its national strength and self-respect, would instinctively feel a deep sympathy for other nations struggling in the same direction. Today, I regret that I have to return to India with the conviction that the new nationalism of Germany is not only narrow and selfish, but arrogant." Right? He's talking about Hitler's regime, right? He also writes about Hitler specifically. He says, Hitler has talked of the destiny of the white races to rule over the rest of the world. But the historical fact is that up until now, the Asiatics have dominated Europe more than have the Europeans dominated Asia, who are struggling for our own freedom, desire that all nations should be free and that Europe and Asia should be at peace with one another. It therefore pains us that the new nationalism in Germany is inspired by selfishness and racial arrogance. Right? And remember, at this time, Germany is still trying to quote British. So he does write, "Germany, in her desire to curry favor with the Great Britain, finds it convenient to attack India and the Indian people." I mean, it's also understandable to a large extent that when he saw Germany go against British, because first British went against Germany, then he was like, okay, now is a good time to take their support. Because I disagree with them. They are fuck all people, but they can help me. Right? So that part is also, and that's a very valid narrative that has continued. Like Bose's family has maintained that it was an enemy of the enemy situation. Enemy of the enemy is my friend situation, right? So that's also very, very valid example, right? Okay, this is a weird thing. His supporters say things like, and this is exactly what they say. Bose wasn't anti-Semitic. Some of his best friends were Jews. It is, like, how can I be racist? Some of my best friends are black people. Yes, Bose did have Jew friends. That does not mean that he was either anti-Semitic or not anti-Semitic. That's not how this works, right? There was a Jewish couple, Kitty and Alex. He has spoken about them. And, they have spoken about him. And Kitty explains that Bose tried to convince her many, many times to leave Germany and go to US. Okay? He also compared the plight of Jews in Nazi Germany to the plight of Indians under British imperialism. And there are many parallels, like it's not very different, right? So yes, Bose was against this, and this was, between 1933 and 1939. He was very involved with this Jewish couple. And there is an argument that, this was not when the full horror of what Nazis did to Jews had emerged. So there is some suggestive speculation on what Bose might have been thinking. But Sarmila Bose does talk about this, and she says that this is only suggestive speculation, right? That it's not substantiative evidence. And when it comes to history, you have to rely a little bit more on recorded history than on what certain people just felt, right? So, like a lot of things which are understandable but not justifiable, right? Then, one of the last things, but equally important, remember we talked about Adam von Trott, who tried to assassinate Hitler, but also was a part of, he was a commander of the Indian, Free India Legion. Now, the website on Bose tries to say that Adam von Trott and Bose were very, very good friends, and they quote a lot of such, instances. But Sharmila Bose clarifies that in reality, Adam von Trott was not Bose's friend. Adam von Trott was actually very, very uncomfortable with how Bose does not understand how Nazi Germany is behaving and how it was super problematic, right? And there are also more recent discoveries, records. Like there was this lecture held by Professor Satadru Sen in 1999. He was an expert on South Asian history at the University of Washington, Seattle. And he says, now I won't quote the entire part. I will link this because it's definitely an article worth reading. It's just a transcript of the lecture. Very, very insightful. But I just want to point out one part. He said, we now have to deal with the question of Bose's political ideology at this point, especially the question of whether or not he was a fascist. Well, in a word, yes, Bose was now a fascist. He had no problems with openly admiring fascism. At the same time, he was not a Nazi, in the sense that he was not a racist and he had no interest in theories of national purity and cultural supremacy. Bose did not seek a Hindu India or some pure version of Indian culture. He had long outgrown his old politics of Hindu nostalgia. He welcomed Muslim participation in Indian nationalism, and he did not hesitate when it came to forming alliances with Muslim politicians. For Bose, fascism was a technique of political organization and a diagram for relations between government and society. Bose was not a Democrat. He might have been one in the 1920s, but by the late 1930s, he was quite certain that parliamentary democracy was not suitable for India. And like Professor Sen goes on explaining what Bose's ideology was, I find it very, very similar to Soviet, right? Like India is so fucked with all the problems of untouchability, caste discrimination, class injustice, all of this, that the only way to solve this is by bringing state control, 100% state control, right? Which people on the left, and I say this as a person on the left, they have a tendency of doing that, right? It is when you get really fucked in the head, you do tend to become the end points of left and right tend to converge quite easily with the megalomaniacs that came to rule. And Bose did seem to display such tendencies, right? Then also in the end of 1938, Nehru had sponsored a resolution to give refuge to a certain number of Jewish people. Bose voted against it. He might have voted against it because he was anti-Semitic, but he might have also voted against it because it was 1938 and he was planning to get Germany support, right? So there are so many speculations, right? And I wanted to talk about this. I wanted to do this episode primarily because, and I have not even covered half of the things that I wanted to talk about, right? Like, it was quite a rabbit hole. There were a lot of good things that Bose did, but there were also a lot of shitty things. And that created a conflict in me. And I just wanted to pass on the conflict to you all. Like, why should I suffer alone, right? That was my main agenda. But
That's always a very good rule of thumb to go through life.
right.
Why should I suffer alone? And might I just point out, all fascists also do that. Why should I suffer alone? I'll also make all of this million other people suffer with me. Just food for thought, Ashmita.
Fascists don't think that they are making people suffer. Fascists think that they're doing great for the world. I am fully aware of the fact that I'm making you suffer with this episode. And it's I just wanted to share this. But also, I have had a lot of time to think about this. I have been thinking about Bose, and since the time I started preparing for this episode, I'm not going to excuse any of the shitty things that he did. He did shitty things. There's no doubt about it. But I keep coming back to a philosophy of the fact that when it is the oppressed trying to get out of oppression, they will do things that in a vacuum is horrifying. But the fault always remains with the oppressors. No exceptions, none. And you see that throughout history. You see that today with Israel versus Hamas. They keep blaming Hamas, and Hamas has done some shit-ass things. The fault lies with Israel. Bose did some shit-ass things. The fault lies with British. The fault lies with Germany, right? The imperialist British and the Nazi Germany. It is important to understand that, because peace does not come out of nowhere. And peace is often weaponized. The concept of peace is often weaponized by people who want to continue oppressing other people, right? So I come out of this with my sympathy still with Bose, but with full acceptance that some parts were super shady, man. There were some things he probably should have not done, but I do sit in a very different era and easy to judge. Recommendation time. Check out this podcast called Your Own Backyard by Chris Lambert. It's the investigating the disappearance and murder of Kristen Smart, a California Polytechnic student in 1996. It is fascinating because the police, surprise, were completely incompetent. They like lost evidence and all of that shit. It was really nonsense. Okay. But then this random podcaster picked it up and it gained so much, like Your Own Backyard gained so much, popularity that the police were forced to pick up the investigation again, and they caught the guys who did this, who murdered her. Fascinating fucking true crime podcast. One of the best that I have listened to. It's amazing. I would highly, highly recommend it.
So yeah, just like Bose vanished from Nazi Germany and left all his people over there, we're also going to pull off a disappearing act now that we've come to the end of this episode.
Not just
and hopefully we'll try and reconvene in the next episode. We hope to see you there. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.